There was a moment in your life, you might not even remember when, where you understood for the first time that you were going to die. Not people die, not grandma died, you. Specifically, personally, one day this will end. And here's the strange part. After that moment, you went right back to checking your phone. Think about it. Most people can't point to the exact day they found out death was real, but almost everyone remembers the feeling, usually somewhere between age 6 and 11. Lying in bed, the room too quiet, a thought that arrives out of nowhere. One day I won't be here. Not sick, not sleeping, just gone. For some kids, it's a panic attack that lasts an hour. For others, it's a quiet dread they never mention to anyone, because how do you even bring that up at the dinner table? And then, nothing happens. Life continues. School the next day. Cartoons. Homework. The information didn't change. You still know you're going to die, but somehow, you stopped feeling it. That gap between knowing and feeling is one of the strangest tricks your mind ever plays on you. And it doesn't just show up once, in childhood, and then disappear forever. It comes back. At a funeral, when you catch yourself glancing at your phone during the eulogy and feeling guilty about it. In a waiting room, when a doctor says a word you don't fully understand and your whole body goes cold before your mind even catches up. Late at night, in the 10 seconds after you turn off the light, when the day's noise fades and something quieter surfaces. Each time, the same pattern repeats. The feeling arrives, sharp and real. And then, within hours or days, it fades. You go back to worrying about traffic, about what someone meant by that text, about whether you left the stove on. It's almost funny if you step back far enough. The single biggest fact of your existence, that it ends, gets pushed to the back of the line behind almost everything else. Here's what's actually going on. Your brain is not built to hold the full weight of mortality and conscious awareness all the time. If it did, you wouldn't be able to function. You wouldn't cross the street, fall in love, plan a vacation, or laugh at a joke. Because some part of you would always be screaming, none of this matters, it all ends. So your mind does something clever. It files death away as an abstract fact instead of a felt reality. You know it, the way you know Australia exists. You've never been there, but you don't doubt it's real. Death becomes something like that. True, but distant. Filed under later. Psychologists call this a mortality buffer, a kind of psychological armor most people build without ever choosing to. It's not denial exactly. You're not pretending death isn't real. You're just not looking directly at it, like staring at the sun. You know it's there. You just don't stare. And this buffer is doing more work in your daily life than you realize. Ever notice how people get strangely defensive about their beliefs, their group, their identity? Even over small things? There's a theory that a huge amount of human behavior is quietly driven by managing the fear of death. Not consciously. You're not walking around thinking, I need to defend my football team because I'm afraid of dying. But underneath, belonging to something bigger than yourself. A team, a nation, a religion, a family name, makes the idea of ending feel a little less total. If you're part of something that continues, some part of you continues too. That's why people can get so worked up over things that seem small on the surface. The argument was never really about the small thing. It was about feeling like something you're attached to, something that gives your life a sense of permanence, is under threat. Here's another strange effect. Studies have shown that simply reminding people of their own mortality, even briefly, even subtly, changes how they behave for a while afterward. People become more protective of their worldview, more generous to people who are like them, sometimes more materialistic, buying things, chasing status, filling the space with more. Not because they consciously thought I might die, so let me go shopping. Because some quiet part of the mind, when nudged toward the void, reaches for anything that feels solid. You've felt this. Maybe after a health scare. Maybe after a funeral. That sudden urge to call someone you love, to quit the job you hate, to finally take the trip. That's not randomness. That's your mortality buffer cracking open for a moment, and real feeling rushing in through the gap. And then, a few days later, it closes again. You go back to your phone, back to worrying about a text message, back to normal, because the buffer isn't a flaw. It's a survival mechanism. Full-time awareness of death is not sustainable. So the mind lets it in only in small, manageable doses. A funeral, a scare, a quiet 2 a.m. thought, and then quietly closes the door again. There's another layer to this worth noticing. Culture itself seems to be built, in part, around helping people manage this exact feeling, even if nobody designed it that way on purpose. Religions that promise something after death. Legacies, monuments, art, books, buildings with your name on them. Even having children is sometimes described, only half-jokingly, as a way of continuing past your own ending. None of this means those things are fake or empty. Love is still love. Art is still art. But it's worth noticing how much of what humans build points, quietly, at the same target. Some way to feel like the ending isn't really the ending. A way to feel continuous, even though no one gets to stay. And once you see that pattern, you start noticing it everywhere. The person who needs their work to be remembered forever. The parent who lives entirely through their child's achievements. The argument online that gets weirdly personal over something that, on its face, shouldn't matter this much. Scratch the surface of a lot of very intense human behavior, and there's often a small, unspoken fear underneath it, quietly steering the wheel. But here's the part that changes everything. The people who seem to live the most awake lives, not frantic, not anxious, but genuinely present, aren't the ones who successfully forgot about death. They're the ones who stopped running from that 2 a.m. feeling. There's a difference between denying mortality and metabolizing it. Denying it means keeping it filed away as an abstract fact forever and letting it leak out sideways. As anxiety you can't explain, as restlessness, as chasing things that don't actually satisfy you, as picking fights that aren't really about what they seem to be about. Metabolizing it means letting the feeling in on purpose, sometimes in small doses, and asking what it's actually telling you. Because that dread isn't only fear. Underneath it, if you sit with it a little longer, there's usually something else, a kind of sharpened attention, a sense that this specific, ordinary afternoon, actually matters, precisely because it won't repeat forever. People who've had genuine brushes with death, a diagnosis, an accident, a close call, often describe the same strange gift afterward. Colors seem more vivid. Conversations feel less like filler and more like something real. Petty resentments lose their grip almost overnight. Not because they learned a new fact. They already knew they'd die. What changed is that the feeling finally caught up with the knowledge, even if only for a while. That's the paradox at the center of all this. The awareness of death, fully felt instead of just filed away, doesn't ruin your life. It's often the only thing that makes you actually live it. Most people spend decades keeping that awareness at arm's length, thinking it's a threat to be managed. But it might be closer to a compass. The discomfort isn't the enemy. It's pointing at what actually matters if you're willing to look. There's a simple way to test this on yourself, actually. Next time that feeling shows up, the late night version, the waiting room version, whatever form it takes for you, try not reaching for your phone right away. Try not changing the channel in your own head. Just stay with it for another 30 seconds longer than feels comfortable. Most people report the same thing when they try this. It doesn't spiral into worse panic the way they expect. It softens, slightly, into something closer to clarity. A short, quiet list starts forming on its own. The people you'd actually want to call. The version of your week you'd actually want to be living. The thing you've been putting off that suddenly doesn't seem worth putting off anymore. That list was always there. The fear was just loud enough to drown it out. You already know you're going to die. You've known since you were a kid, lying in a dark room, having a thought too big for a small body to hold. The question was never whether you'd find out. It's whether you let that knowledge stay a fact you carry, or let it, once in a while, become a feeling you actually listen to. Because the people who seem most alive aren't the ones who forgot they'll die. They're the ones who let that thought visit more than once.